to hear the government's objection to the merger between Raytheon Missile Systems and Boeing. Okay, so
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Nathan Morgan, and I'm here with my colleague, Jenna Hildebrand, and we are representing the government and would like to see the merger of Boeing and Raytheon blocked. These companies are both major players in the missile and missile defense markets, and as such, pose a threat to national security in the case of a merger. If they experience supply chain issues or manufacturing issues, there could be a large stoppage of production, which we may need in times of conflict. A reduction in innovation and advancement due to less competition in the market. This could result in stagnation or slower progress in critical areas such as missile guidance systems, propulsion technologies, and countermeasures. The merger could lead to increased concentration of sensitive defense technologies, capabilities, and intellectual property within one single entity. This concentration could present an attractive target for insider threats, espionage, or cyber attacks. A breach of security or compromise of classified information could have serious implications for national security and defense preparedness. The merger would create a highly consolidated market in the American missile and missile defense market when the market is already highly consolidated. According to Mordor Intelligence, Raytheon and Boeing are two of the 5 big players in the market and put them in a more advantageous position over the other companies. This could go against the first of the merger guidelines, where mergers raise the presumption of illegality when they significantly increase concentration in a highly concentrated market, as well as the second, where mergers can violate the law when they eliminate substantial competition between firms. Boeing, being a producer of commercial and military aircraft, will be put in a position of advantage where they no longer need to purchase airplane engines and other electronics and sensors as Raytheon produces them. This causes them to control the whole supply chain of aircraft, from the parts to the aircraft. The issue with this is they're relying heavily on a single supplier, such as Raytheon in this case, could expose Boeing to supply chain vulnerabilities, such as disruptions, quality issues, or pricing fluctuations. By diversifying the supplier network, Boeing reduces its dependency on any single supplier and better manages supply chain risk. Opening procurement opportunities to multiple suppliers encourages competition and innovation. When Boeing sources aircraft parts from various suppliers, including Raytheon's competitors, it creates incentives for suppliers to continuously improve quality, reduce costs, and innovate. Both allowing this merger, we will be going against that and blocking those things instead. In the event of disruptions such as natural disasters, geopolitical tensions, or supplier bankruptcies, having multiple suppliers instead of one allows production to keep moving to the benefit of the consumers and keeps prices normal. There is a precedent case where General Electric attempted to acquire Honeywell, two of the major players in the aerospace market, but the merger was blocked. General Electric proposed to acquire Honeywell, who was a leading aerospace manufacturer as well, and still is. However, the European Commission blocked the merger in 2001 due to concerns about market dominance in certain aerospace sectors. This decision marked the first time that the European Commission had prohibited a merger between two American companies. General Electric had revenues of $125.9 billion, and Honeywell had revenues of $23.65 billion.
This is currently or back?
That was at the time of the merger.
At the time of the merger. Okay, so 2001.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was a total combined revenue of $149.55 billion. While Raytheon currently, for this past year, had 74.3, and Boeing had 77.79, which is a total of 152.09 billion. So it's very similar to the 149.55 billion. And this is significant because those companies are direct competitors to our companies, and this is a merger of two companies of very similar combined value, and they're similar to the last two in the same market, which leads to the fact that we still believe this merger should be blocked, as that one was. There was one other precedent case we looked at, and it was United States versus General Electric. Again, but this was back in 1959, and General Electric tried to purchase the assets of the Jones and Laughlin Steel Corporation's Aircraft Engine Division. And the Department of Justice argued that the merger would substantially lessen competition in the aircraft engine market and violate antitrust laws. The court found the merger would result in a significant increase in concentration in the aircraft engine market, leading to reduced competition, higher prices, diminished innovation. The ruling emphasized the importance of maintaining competition in critical industries like aerospace to protect consumers and promote economic efficiency. This case is our case and shows how important it is in the aerospace industry to keep a diverse range of companies and stop consolidation. In summary, allowing the merger between Boeing and Raytheon would not only increase in consolidation across multiple product markets, but also stifle innovation and pose significant national security risks, particularly in the missile and missile defense sectors where the government is the primary buyer. Therefore, it is imperative that the merger is blocked to protect the interests of national security and maintain a competitive and innovative marketplace. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Company opening statement.
Your Honor, members of the court, today we stand before you to advocate for a merger that holds immense potential to strengthen our nation's security, advance technological innovation, and drive economic growth. The proposed combination of Boeing and Raytheon represents not just a corporate transaction, but a strategic point for the United States in an increasingly complex and competitive global landscape. At its core, this merger is more than just two companies joining forces. It's about leveraging the collective expertise, resources, and capabilities of Boeing and Raytheon to bolster our national security, enhance our global competitiveness, and secure a brighter future for generations to come. Throughout this proceeding, we will demonstrate how the merger aligns with the best interests of our country, our economy, and ultimately our citizens. We firmly believe that the Boeing-Raytheon merger represents a unique opportunity to reinforce America's leadership in aerospace and defense, safeguarding our nation's security interests and propel our economy forward. We urge this court to carefully consider the merits of our case and grant approval for this transformative merger.
Okay. Let's turn to a moment to the product definition. What does the government submit as the product definition?
The product definition is a focus in aircraft parts with missile defense systems as well as electronics and space satellites.
Okay. Do the companies object or agree?
Yep.
Okay. So the government submission of the product definition is entered into the court record without objection. Okay. What about commercial aircraft? That's not in the product definition. Presently, Boeing and Airbus produce commercial aircraft. So is it the government's position that this merger would not affect that market?
So our product definition, we were combining the two in sense of what they had in common, particularly in what they both specifically produce. So when we go to aircraft parts, they're both producing parts. We're just not recognizing the fact Raytheon does not put these planes together like both Boeing does, but there's both have production of the parts.
Okay. So there is the potential to impact commercial aircraft.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned there were 5 top companies in the market. I see 4 of them listed in your filing with the court: General Electric, Honeywell, Boeing, and Raytheon. Is there another? What's the 5th one?
Airbus Defense and Space.
Okay, Airbus.
I have like 8 more.
You got 8 more.
Yeah, can you listen? Corp., Bruin Corp., Lockheed Martin, United Technologies Corporation, RTX Corporation, General Electric Aviation, Spirit Aerosystems, NASA, Same brand.
Okay, and did, either the government or the companies, file a Herfindahl?
Yeah, we did, I think, or maybe we didn't. Our Herfindahl was changing a lot.
It-
We were stuck behind a lot of
it-
paywalls,
it-
so we had to pay a lot of money to access the information.
It took a while to find the product definition too, right? So you did not have a Herfindahl.
We wouldn't have any, specific numbers for a Herfindahl.
But the government is identifying this as a highly concentrated industry.
Yes.
I see that in your filing. Do the companies agree this is already a highly concentrated industry?
We're arguing that it's not a highly concentrated market.
Okay.
For aircraft parts itself, I have a general Herfindahl index, but nothing concrete. Each of these companies, did not lay out a direct market share,
Mhm.
but I have a general percentage of Raytheon, UTC, General Electric, Safran, Spirit Aerosystems. I did not find anything for Boeing or Airbus.
Okay.
And Raytheon, Raytheon I did find something for.
And I also found some for space satellites. I found that Raytheon makes up 0.09% of that market, and Boeing makes up 2.34% of that market. It's a $286 billion market. The next competitors in that market are Airbus and SpaceX. Airbus is a higher percentage in that market with a 4.3%, and SpaceX has 1.6%, and EchoStar Corp has 1.35% of that market.
Okay.
So as those companies we've listed, they only have 1 or 2% of the market because the market is so saturated with different defense industry companies.
Okay, the government of the United States is a major buyer for all these companies, correct? And, so was there an analysis done on the share of contracts by each of these companies by the US government?
There has not been,
Okay.
at least not by the government.
I know the United States has spent about $73.2 billion on space programs. I know NASA has about 25.4 billion of that, and the rest is just spread out between different contracted companies.
Of interest to the court would be, what percentage of each company's total revenue comes from the contracts with the US Department of Defense? That would be of relevance. I hear the companies are telling me that, this merger would be good for national defense.
It would be.
The government is telling me that this would be awful for national defense. Starting with the government, could each of you speak to that? Specifically the defense.
So in the defense, we were looking at a source of, when you're merging these two companies together, and you're making a larger entity, and you're having more of that information and systems to do with the missiles and missile defense systems. They're leaving themselves, not leaving themselves, but it's a greater chance of more serious information getting leaked in terms of, through cyber attacks or espionage, or any kind of agents inside possibly from other countries getting into this company, because it's such a large company. That could have ramifications for the country if they're between contracts with the government, or knowing what the company produces, finding out about the product. They can figure out ways to maybe reverse engineer or counter whatever missiles or such we may have, or get through our defenses.
Are the company's gonna tell me that, the merger would, help to prevent, cybersecurity hacks, et cetera.
So cybersecurity is always going to be an industry that is a hot topic for any company. Any company is susceptible to a cybersecurity attack. If you take one company that's already strong and another company that's strong with top talent in each company and you put them together, that only makes those firewalls that much higher to climb over and that much stronger not to get broken through. But there's always a possible risk of some guy who may be born 30 years from now, who has a neurochip in the back of his neck, who can hack through anything. But if we have our top talent combined in making sure that our firewalls are the best possible, then I think that it gives us the best chance at making sure those breaches don't happen, and then that leak of information doesn't go. And any information that is vital to national security, the government themselves actually has to do a background check. They have to give you certain levels of clearance. So that's the government giving us trust that we won't break that. So it's all depending on what level of security clearance you have. So if you have a level 1 security clearance and you leak a prototype for an aircraft part, it's detrimental, yes, but it will not sink our company at all.
If I may.
Yes, good.
I would say, with the two companies coming together, I don't think you're going to be increasing any firewalls. I think because you have two separate companies, that's two different companies you'd have to break into. When you go into one company, they only have to break into one. There's not gonna be any extra firewalls. It's just whatever firewalls for the one company ends up being. And also, neither of these companies are necessarily proficient in cybersecurity. Therefore, they're not going to be upgrading their firewalls or anything. So therefore, it's more information in one place instead of information split between two different places.
Okay, another point the government made, in your filing is that, the merger would strengthen the bargaining position of these companies in negotiation with contracts with the government. Can you elaborate on that?
So for the bargaining positions, we saw that when we merge these two companies together and they have more, they'll be able to produce more and they become a larger bargaining power to the government because they have more missiles and such that they can sell to the government than other companies can. They have, and with the more, with a larger, it's like having a larger player over the other players. So that way the government would get to deal more with the bigger company because that company has an advantage over the others if they can produce more and sell them to the government at perhaps a cheaper price. And then it kind of cuts out the other competition as contracts work.
We touched on this previously, and you said you didn't know exact numbers, but, and the companies can chime in here too. If you know, according to what the court has read and filed, it appears that the U.S. Department of Defense is the primary source of revenue through its buying for most of these companies. Is that the case or not the case?
Yes, it is. So, Raytheon Technologies is one of the largest defense contractors in 2022. Headquartered in Arlington, Virginia, Raytheon earned a revenue of $67.1 billion from the U.S. government sales and foreign military sales. In 2023, a combined 37% of Boeing's revenue came from the U.S. government alone. In addition, foreign governments accounted for an additional 3% of Boeing revenue. As a result, the cumulative government revenue exposure of Boeing was 40% in 2023.
Does the government have any kind of contrary data?
I would like to also mention that, we also have to look at the fact that I believe most times the government has invested into ideas. Boeing, Raytheon, Airbus will come to them with ideas. Say, hey, this is how we wanna produce it, this is the money that we need, this is a contract that we can meet. So, yes, these two companies may merge, we may not have more ideas, which may lead to more contracts, but that also means that people everywhere else can go to the government just as well. Those other companies may hire that one guy that they may need to bring a new idea in. So the idea space is still very open, which can lead to a lot of contracts for all the other companies as well.
Let's go back to the strengthening the company's bargaining position vis-a-vis the government. Okay? If the government is the primary buyer of these companies' services, then it has market power as the buyer, okay? It's not quite a monopsony, but pretty close, right? Okay, so the government has tremendous power as the primary buyer. How would that be significantly lessened because of this merger? I'll give the government a couple of moments to reflect on that.
I'll also add something.
Yep.
So it's not like the US government that is spending money on, companies in the US. They're spending money, there's companies all around the world, governments all around the world spending money on these companies in America. So it's not just limited to the United States.
There are other buyers.
Yes.
Is what you're telling me. But still, the US government is
Yeah,
the primary buyer.
It's the word, yeah.
It's by far not.
Yeah, it's
It's
next
the
one,
US, it's the US government.
next place that comes into place is China with 14.15 million.
And we also sell to allies.
Yeah, so the allies is about,
Boeing and Raytheon are American companies, so naturally we're in line with America's interests, so we can sell to not just our market, but the European market as well. So now,
And what are you selling to China?
no,
Probably nothing.
if China's an ally, maybe, if
Yeah.
China's not an ally, no.
I was just bringing up what governments are spending money on their space programs.
Okay, I need a moment to confer with my clerk.
The government's position here will be, besides the fact of the increased production, which gives them more ability to bargain with the government in that sense. With the merging of these two companies, those two companies are no longer competing with for the innovation standards where the government invested in innovation as stated. They're not competing against each other anymore for the government to invest contracts into them. It's now they're one company, so it takes away from the competition that there was between those two companies with the other companies around. It's less companies competing for those government contracts. Less options for the government per se.
Okay. Let's go to specific points that the government made in its opening. Is there any of those points the companies would like to rebut?
I'm gonna need either a summarized version or a restate of the opening statement to make sure I know the points I'm talking about.
Okay, the main points, initially, the first point was the missile defense markets. The chance of threat to national security that comes with that, if there's supply chain issues, how now instead of only one company being affected, it could be multiple companies, instead of multiple companies. One company, so the cyber attacks and all of that, such nature, is from the Mordor Intelligence, highly concentrated market of 2 of the 5 biggest players in that market. Then, Boeing with the, no longer needing to purchase airplane engines. The parts that they would have, you take out the, competition between the suppliers of those parts. So there are, where's that? Then it was the precedent case of General Electric attempting to acquire Honeywell. And then the other precedent case of, General Electric trying to acquire Jones and Laughlin Steel for their aircraft engine division. Those were the main points in the opening statement.
May we have a minute to confer?
Yes.
Thank you.
So first, like, I wanna discuss that the stronger competition in the global market, a merger Boeing Raytheon entity would likely become a formidable competitor in the global aerospace and defense market. This increased competitiveness could incentivize the company to invest more heavily in research and development, driving innovation and technological advancement. It would also drive other companies to do their best to match the new merged company's results, which would drive the companies even further. Consumers would also benefit from a faster pace of innovation with new products and technologies entering the market more rapidly. Furthermore, the merged entity's strength and position in the global market could lead to improved bargaining power with suppliers, which would further drive down costs for consumers. Okay. So it was really hard to find like the perfect down for like the markets that our companies are part of. But like I said, with space satellites, when the companies come together, it's post-merger, it's not gonna affect anything. I mean, there's other companies out there that are producing more revenue than us.
Because it's
Yeah.
low concentration.
Yeah, it's a little concentrated market. Aircraft parts. Raytheon does produce aircraft parts and engines, and Boeing really doesn't, like they were saying. Having them come together, we could lower costs for our aviation department. So instead of, us being a
We can lower prices, in our aerospace industry because we no longer have to buy engines from an outside source. And if you think about any large company naturally goes down the vertical integration point at some point in their life. So I think that it's an important step for this company. I mean, if we want to make the lowest prices for our consumers and then also be able to give, if we're gonna get contracts, if we can't go into contracts and say, hey, we need way more money than everybody else, we have to be able to lower our costs. So a vertical integration of getting engines down is not a bad step in the company's interest. And the precedent cases they brought up, we plan on being the first one not to be stopped. That's what we plan on being.
First one not to be stopped,
Yes, correct.
in terms of what?
Being allowed to merge.
Oh, okay.
And, also I wanna bring up, they were talking about it being like a threat to national security, only one company, cyber attacks, stuff like that. Yes, it's gonna be one company if they merge, but you have two companies come together, which means double the amount of power to come up with ideas on how to prevent cyber attacks, and it's not only limited to cyber attacks, like, when you have more people, more diversity, it's gonna bring more ideas into the company. So bringing it together the two companies' ideas on different things that we're doing will advance us into the future, you know?
You know, the old saying about plans.
Oh, yeah,
The best laid plans of mice and men, you might plan to not be stopped, but that's not your decision.
I go to Mike Tyson says everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
There you go.
So you guys are saying that prices would go down for consumers and everyone, but if you have the most control, you're able to set the pricing and determine what you want to charge people, and you'd be the most empowered, so you'd be able to control the entire market.
So even if you have the cost savings, the government saying you might not pass those on to consumers, and you still are likely to charge higher prices because of your enhanced market power.
And it could be bad for employees, customers, competitors, and shareholders. Employees may face, changes in company culture, while customers could experience reduced choices, higher prices, etc. Competitors may struggle to compete with the combined resources of the merged companies, leading to decreased competition in the market. Shareholders might see a decrease in their return on investment if the merger does not result in increased profitability.
I want to tie two things together that you haven't really tied together. Supply chain issues and cybersecurity issues. What the government is telling me is by these companies merging, supply chain bottlenecks can erupt, right? And instead of having like two companies with two different supply chains where you could have a bottleneck in one and not the other, if there's a merger, well then both of these companies, what would have been two companies but now one, they're both affected, correct? And there's kind of like a similar argument from the government in terms of cybersecurity, right? Okay, that by merging, you kind of like wind up with the lowest common denominator as far as cybersecurity defense, right? Is that accurate? Okay. What the companies are telling me is by merging that the supply chain bottlenecks or problems would actually be alleviated.
Correct.
And you're suggesting exactly the same in regard to cybersecurity, right? So merging, according to the companies, enhances their cybersecurity and alleviates supply chain problems, correct?
Correct.
Government's telling me the exact opposite, right? Okay. Could you respond to one another? First the government, then the companies.
So, the argument with cybersecurity is the fact that these companies, cybersecurity is not their focus. Cybersecurity is not what they're trying to improve on. They're doing the products we stated with the aircraft, or well, in the aerospace industry, we have the electronics and sensors, we have the missiles and defense systems, aircraft parts. These things aren't cybersecurity. It's not what they're working on. It's not what they're approving. It's not how they're not focused on such a thing. And I don't think the merging of these two companies therefore is going to improve that, because there is no incentive for them to do so. The other part is supply chain.
On this, I think what the government is suggesting is if two companies merge, then there are certain elements of the supply chain that are gonna be like standardized, right? It's not gonna be two separate supply chains anymore. They're gonna like standardize it, and there's gonna be a cost saving there. And then if there is a bottleneck, it'll affect the totality of this company, right?
Yeah, so if there is a problem, if there's a large issue there with the supply chain, it can become definitely a serious issue to the point that it can raise costs a lot, just because we can't, they don't have those parts that they would be then relying on from just Raytheon in that respect.
In company's turn, could you speak to that?
So, companies like Boeing, Raytheon, Airbus, Safran, Spirit Aerospace, they're all buying the same products. We're just getting them through different avenues. Okay? So now, if our company is larger, we have more resources now. We understand that a supply bottleneck can be a large issue, but that now means we have resources to make sure we diversify where we are getting those products from. And if we absorb Raytheon, that doesn't mean we're gonna get rid of their supply chain. We now just have access to it. So instead of now paying an exorbitant amount for their products after they've already gone through basically a copy and paste of our supply chain, now we have double our supply chain. We have the same diversity as the market did before, just now it's under us, and we have no want or need to create a bottleneck. So we can go with our now new and added resources to make sure that stays diversified. We don't want what would happen in, I believe it was 2022, 2021, when that computer chip in China burned down, and then there were no trucks being produced because there were no chips for any of the computerized parts. With a larger company, maybe we don't have to rely on that singular plant in China, and maybe we can go, all right, maybe we wanna build a plant over here, maybe we wanna build a plant over there. If we have limited resources, we can't take that extra step. So that's something we can do. And the cybersecurity aspect, it's a hard issue to argue, because no matter what, there's always going to be a breach in any aspect. I mean, Facebook, when it was being started, thought impenetrable, like these guys are top of the line. Then your information gets leaked. Instagram gets leaked all the time. So there's always going to be holes, but with all this new supply that we're getting, all this new money, and yes, we may not focus on cybersecurity, but now we have the resources to go out and get outside help, say, hey, please make this as strong as possible. And then we're just adding to the economy there too, because we're buying from other people in the market.
Okay. I gave the companies a chance to respond to various points in the government's opening. Would the government want to respond to any of the other specific points the company made?
If you could give me slide summary and just to remember.
No. No.
Oh, sorry.
Basically, ours is about leverage, so if the merger joins forces, it's about leveraging the collective expertise, resources, and capabilities to bolster national security, enhance global competitiveness, and secure a brighter future. We believe that this will reinforce America's leadership in aerospace and defense, and we will safeguard our nation's security better as a combined unit, and it will also help our economy move forward. That is
So the one thing about it is it's definitely very broad, but it's not very specific. I'd say like if there's like reinforcing America's defense, like something like that plays back into national security and how we believe the national security would definitely be, I guess, less secure in a sense, the cybersecurity and such of that nature.
You said it would help the economy, boosting technology, advancements and things like that, but like how do you think that's gonna do that?
I imagine when you have a company like Raytheon coming in, and Boeing's now, like, you think Boeing now gets those parts, and that's the parts they may use, that's what they use. It kind of takes away Raytheon's incentive to innovate upon those parts then. There's no reason for them to try to work very hard to really improve and make better parts if Boeing's just gonna throw them in their airplanes kind of thing. Do you have anything else? I guess, and the only other thing I wanted to bring up is the issue that was stated before court of plane doors and such issues of importance like that. I feel like the government feels as such this would be an issue that Boeing needs to fix these problems before they try to worry about a merger and bringing in this other company to try to work on these other things. They need to fix these immediate problems now before there would even be a merger, because they are responsible for ensuring safety and airworthiness before they even try to work about getting new parts from a different company cheaper. The safety of the consumer, and then we also then have the cost benefit to the consumer as well. Raytheon also, they're not gonna have direct experience with likely the specific issues because it's been Boeing's problem, it's been a Raytheon problem. So I'm not sure necessarily that Raytheon's going to help them per se within fixing said issue.
They don't have any expertise on.
They don't have
on
expertise
doors
in that
and all
specific.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's not gonna get fixed at all.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, accidents are bound to happen in any company. Boeing wants to focus on, accidents like that, preventing them. There's accidents every day that happen in companies. Doesn't mean that they're defined by them. Doesn't mean that their whole company is defined by one little issue that happened.
How many doors was it that fell off?
The fact that you can't tell us it wasn't that bad,
Exactly. Did anybody die?
maybe, we don't know, let's not pull that in there.
That's not.
So Raytheon, they said that Raytheon may not be the missing piece of our puzzle, but the counter argument is that they could be. I mean, they are building jet engines and aircrafts and all these other things that's why we want to pursue them. So there may be a lone engineer in there who may see this problem very simply and go, all right, you need to do this in order to build that problem to a solution.
So you see the merger as a potential to reform Boeing's engineering department?
It could possibly be, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna get rid of our old engineers at all. They've been doing a great job, and like my partner said, one mistake does not define a company, because they did a lot more companies would sink.
Okay, I believe we will go to closing arguments, and, the companies go first, company goes last.
In conclusion, let us recognize the potential of Boeing-Raytheon merger. It promises to bolster national security, drive innovation, and fuel economic growth. We've addressed concerns, offering solutions to safeguard competition and compliance. And as we decide, let's consider the broader context. Aerospace and defense are evolving. Collaboration and innovation are key. I urge approval, and we are confident in the merger's benefits for our nation.
Your Honor, in closing, I want to reiterate the gravity of the situation at hand. The proposed merger between Boeing and Raytheon presents a clear and precedent danger to our national security and the integrity of critical industries. As we've outlined throughout this hearing, the consolidation of these two major players in the missile and missile defense markets would pose numerous risks and challenges that cannot be ignored. The potential for supply chain issues or manufacturing disruptions resulting from the merger could have dire consequences, especially in times of conflict when we rely on uninterrupted production of essential defense systems. The reduction in competition resulting from the merger threatens to stifle innovation and technological advancements in critical areas such as missile guidance systems and countermeasures. The concentration of sensitive defense technologies, capabilities, and intellectual properties within a single entity raises significant concerns about national vulnerabilities and the potential for insider threats or cyber attacks. We simply cannot afford to compromise our national security by allowing such consolidation to proceed in unchecked. Furthermore, the merger would exacerbate market consolidation in an already highly concentrated American missile and missile defense market, creating an unfair advantage for Boeing and Raytheon over other competitors. This runs counter to the principles of fair competition and could ultimately harm consumers and taxpayers. We've also presented compiling precedent cases that underscore the importance of maintaining competition and diversity in critical industries, like aerospace, to protect consumers and promote economic efficiency. The outcomes of these cases serve as clear warnings against allowing unchecked consolidation to occur. In summary, Your Honor, the merger between Boeing and Raytheon must be blocked to safeguard our national security, promote innovation and competition, and uphold the principles of fair and open markets. We urge you to consider the evidence presented and make a decision that serves the best interests of our country and its citizens. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bell, could you escort these lawyers out while the judge deliberates? Okay, thoughts, y'all? Y'all usually have strong opinions.
Yeah, I think both sides gave some pretty good points. I liked what they were saying about national defense, how teaming up might benefit them. I mean, two very powerful companies clashing heads and trying to see how far they can get together. There is always that old adage of, work together, you go a little bit farther. So I can see that. But at the same time, they did talk a lot about how prices could fluctuate upwards just because they would be so strong. Not that I think the government would have any problem with paying more for national security because they do that already. But
There's a certain symbiotic relationship between the Defense Department and these defense contractors, isn't there?
I think this case is tough because, unlike the other two, it was very much of a he said, she said, and there wasn't many numbers, I feel like. I thought the companies made great points, but at the same time, I thought the government countered well enough because the companies are at a disadvantage already with the merger. So I do think the government countered well enough with their arguments to at least suspend the merger.
Guys over here.
Same thing he said about not enough numbers. I think if we got some more changes in the Irvindale, where we could see how much it would grow or how much it would kind of change after the merger, I think it would make more concrete evidence whether it would raise prices or not.
They had difficulty defining a product market for a while, and then certain absence of market share information, with the product they did define. So before a judge can like render a verdict here, I think judge has to issue some subpoenas for more information. Yes.
I think that one thing I would have liked to hear the government bring up, just to see what the companies would say, is like when it comes to defense contracts or like government contracts, I typically think of that going to like, those going to the lowest bidder. So if you are trying to get those contracts, you're lowering your prices to kind of block out other competition, and I think that that's kind of a violation of FTC guidelines. So I would like to hear what the company's like argument against that would be.
I would have liked to hear the government talk a little bit more about the guidelines. I think that there's a lot of information in there that they could have used, but they stayed away from it, which, you know, but I think they could have used a lot of information from the FTC.
Well, they mentioned guideline number 1 a few times.
Yeah, but I think there's
lots of guidelines.
there's 14 guidelines,
Yeah, something like that.
but there's just more in there than what they brought out.
Ben, what?
Much more to add. I mean, I think like Alan who said it earlier, it seemed like there was kind of like bickering back and forth with the hypothetical stuff.
Randy, you got any thoughts? Sure.
I thought both sides made some good points.
Mhm.
You know, I think we all want a free and open marketplace. You know, there was a reason many years ago that antitrust laws were on the books.
Mhm.
And you know, does this give Raytheon and Boeing a defense monopoly?
Mhm.
And that's something to be a little wary of.
On the bidding on the contracts, I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work in practice. The company with the low bid gets it, but it's not really how it does work in practice. There's a cozy relationship between the Department of Defense and these defense contractors. Anyway, I think we need a Herfindahl here for the court to like render a verdict, and until that time, we'll grant a continuance. I think that's what the judge is gonna do, right? So Bailiff, could you call him back in?
Bailiff, good to see you. Hey, don't do that. Randy, good to see you.
Okay, the judge has decided this case will be continued. Okay, the court will subpoena information from the companies in, not just you, but the companies in your industry, in order to be able to construct a reliable Herfindahl index. And then we will go from there. And so this case will continue 1 month from today. Thank you very much for your participation. Y'all did good. Okay. Okay. So